Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming and having us to speak, and thank you to the MERGE organization for doing this wonderful event here in Buenos Aires. I'm with three OGs, three great people who understand the gaming industry, the blockchain gaming industry. I'm going to ask every one of you to make a brief intro and to tell us who you are, what you're doing. I will do a brief intro of myself, so I will start. I'm Mariano Rubinstein. I'm co-founder and CEO of Sura Gaming and Sura Ventures. Sura Ventures is the first venture studio targeting gaming startups in South America. And I'm also sitting at the board of Blockchain Game Alliance together with Leah. So I'm very deep involved on the blockchain gaming industry. That's a little bit about me. So please.
Hello everyone, I'm Marina Villalonga. I'm partner at Asensi Abogados, which is a law firm based both in Spain and Colombia. So we provide legal services throughout Europe and Latin America. And we focus on gambling, gaming, and crypto.
Hi everybody, my name's Leah. I just firstly want to thank my panelists and all of you for allowing us to do this panel in English. That is my fault. But I'm Australian, as you might be able to tell from my accent, but I live in the Philippines. As Mariano said, we sit on the board of the Blockchain Game Alliance together. I'm a CoinDesk opinion columnist, and my company is called Emfarsis. We invest in early stage Web3 projects with a focus on gaming. And we're very interested in how that can actually further social impact in emerging economies.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yemel. I'm a software engineer. I've been in the crypto space for more than 10 years. I feel old saying that. Yeah, I co-founded Decentraland in the early days, 2016. 17 was kind of the thing. First crypto project to raise money in Latin America through blockchain. And well, for the past 2 years, I have been the executive director of the Decentraland Foundation. Pretty excited to be here.
Okay, great. So, very interesting people. We hope to have a very interesting panel. And I'm going to start with something very basic. Where we are today with Web3 gaming or blockchain gaming. So what do you think it was the fundamental shift Web3 brought to the gaming industry? Who want to start? Maybe Jimmy?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the very fundamental change of Web3 gaming is not technological, it's more on the philosophical side. It's about setting the players on being able to own assets, to be not just a consumer of the game, but a stakeholder of the game at some point. In particular for games that are about user-generated content, I think they have the opportunity to have the say, to build their stuff, to sell it, to be part of an economy that not only lives in this particular world, but it can transcend and interoperate with other games as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that the main word here would be empowerment. I mean, like gamers now take the chance to own the assets. They don't depend on the developers. They can decide on the game, and I think that this is part of the key of the success of Web3 games. Empowerment, I would say.
Ownership is at the base of Web3 gaming, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I might just take that a step further. I think, so we do a survey of the blockchain gaming industry, professionals that work in the industry every year on behalf of the Blockchain Game Alliance. And every single year when we ask survey respondents, what is the #1 thing that developers are working for? And they always say ownership, digital property rights. But there's kind of this disconnect because actually it's really difficult to onboard people to Web3. So then they're kind of going, oh, I guess players don't really get digital ownership. So it's kind of like their most unique selling point is actually the thing that is deterring players. I guess what I would say is that, when blockchain games really burst onto the scene in late 2020 and throughout 2021, we saw the play-to-earn movement, which was very financialized. And that really quickly fell out of favor due to unsustainability of the model, the tokenomic model. And I kind of feel like we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater in a way, because we do actually have a kind of financial notion that is wrapped up with ownership as well. But now people are like, ooh, financial is a dirty word. We're not allowed to talk about that anymore. So I think that's kind of a bit of an identity crisis that blockchain gaming is facing at the moment.
Yeah, I think that back then in 2021, 2022, when play-to-earn start being shown everywhere and people start getting a lot of money, it changed the industry towards that way. Instead of taking all the advantages that blockchain technology can bring to the table. So play-to-earn is just one business model, it's not the only one. And what we saw at that time is that there's still power of communities. So the sense of belonging that people can feel playing together within a community that at the end brings actual people playing real games. And this comes to the next question. How do you think the gaming communities, right now called as gaming guilds, but clans in the past, how do you think gaming communities are helping the blockchain gaming industry?
I think communities are very at the core of Decentraland. That's my experience, so I will be speaking from there. Decentraland is not a regular game in the sense like you win Decentraland or you lose it. It's a social experience. Most of our users came to Decentraland because they are trying to make friends online. They are trying to have a real social experience with another person on the other side that can interact. And most of the key drivers of engagement for us are the communities. It's like that magical moment when you jump in world and suddenly you realize there's another person like greeting you and inviting you to an event. There is a party. They see you are using like common clothes and they gift you like some new clothes for like match up the style of the party. I think that's the magical moment, and that's what actually encourages retention. And that's the little journey, becoming from a new user that is wandering to like being greeted by a community, start joining the events of the community. That's the callback, the hook for when I'm going to open the game again. It's because I have a message from a friend I met, and the message is in Discord, maybe on Twitter. Like the community goes beyond just the game. It's the network through different communication platforms that's calling you back for the next activation, and giving the tool for the communities to actually build assets in the world, giving the tool for the community to like organize events, to customize their experience. I think that is pretty core for this central use case.
I think that any game is a social network itself, so people gather together to play together and share experiences.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Like, I think community has always been key to gaming, but I think right now too, like a lot of Web3 games are struggling with user acquisition and distribution. So I think they see communities as a platform to be able to distribute those games. And guilds specifically are a fantastic way for them to be able to target very specific types of communities that might sort of organize around the kind of games that they love. Like maybe there's a guild around first-person shooters, or maybe it's around even these days things like, gamified AI labeling, like things like that. I think guilds were one of the most interesting business models that came out of the original Web3 gaming boom, sort of in 2021. And a lot of venture capital was thrown at these guilds. And the original model, for anyone who isn't familiar, was basically that they would buy up these in-game assets, which were NFTs, which were often very expensive, so difficult for people, say, in an emerging economy to access. And these were NFTs that you had to own if you wanted to play the game. So the guilds would buy them and they'd rent them out. And it was the scholarship model that we basically called it, which was like, guilds would take a cut off the earnings of the person who was playing with that asset. With the bear market, when we saw, if you've been in crypto for a few cycles, you'll know that it goes up and down. When things went down, it was very difficult to sustain that model. And again, I would say it's kind of throwing out the baby with the bathwater if we don't continue this, because what guilds actually represent is, I guess the Web3 gaming guild is a very new version of the type of guilds that have existed for centuries. If you go back to sort of medieval times, these were people who came together as a collective with a similar expertise or set of skills, and they would collaborate together for economic benefit. I mean, I see the same thing happening with Web3 gaming guilds today, so I don't actually think it's a new thing, it's just like a new version of something that is a very proven and well-established model. But, I guess like a little bit like play to earn, guilds fell out of favor because of the struggle that they had throughout the bear market. For me, I actually think it's still an amazing method of distribution, one of the most interesting business models we've seen, and it just kind of needs time to be able to evolve and mature along with some of the other challenges that the market is experiencing at the moment.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to change a little bit the subject. We have a lawyer and specialist in digital means. So I would like to know, from a legal point of view, what does a game designer or a game studio has to know about regulatory issues on a Web3 game? And what's the difference between gaming and getting some pieces on the game, some NFTs, from gambling?
Well, I'm sorry because I'm the board part of the of the panel, which is always regulation. It's always between.
But it's necessary.
Gaming developers have to take into account that this is not so easy. I mean, it's not about just IP rights, for example. It's like, how do we build this game in order for it not to fall into other regulations that we don't expect? For example, the line between gambling and gaming is so thin, and most gaming developers do not know this. In order to decide if a game falls into the gambling sector, we need to take into account 3 elements. Usually, of course, they can change among countries, but basically we have to think about 3 elements, which are, first one, pay to play, then the chance, and a price with an economic value. If we have these 3 elements, we may think that this is gambling and not gaming. So this leads us, for example, to loot boxes. Loot boxes are like these chests we open in a game that we have this magical sword with all this power. Okay, have we paid to open this chest, or is it for free? I am obtaining this magical sword because of my ability in the game, or is just by chance? Can I sell this sword in a marketplace? If we respond yes to all these questions, maybe we are in front of a gambling situation which is regulated by the gambling regulations, which are so tough and so heavy. And sanctions, when we do not fulfill the gambling regulations, are super heavy. So we need to take into account that these 3 elements can't go together in a game, okay? And then the other part will be the NFTs. following the example, if this magical sword is unique, is a real NFT, okay, we don't need to look at regulations. For example, in Europe, we have MiCA. MiCA specifically excludes the NFTs as long as they are unique and non-fungible. But these two characteristics are not so easily disclosed. It has to exist a real uniqueness and non-fungibility in order to establish that an NFT is non-fungible and it's unique, and therefore it do not falls into the MiCA regulations. So we need to assess case by case how this NFT has been built. Maybe the smart contract is the one that you apply to an NFT which is unique, but then the utility, the substance of this NFT tell us that, okay, if I lose this NFT, maybe I can replace this for an equivalent. So maybe we need to take into account that some regulations will apply. So this is how we have to.
That's very interesting.
We have to be careful with.
Yeah, something to be careful when you build a game, because there are a lot of concepts that are shared between gambling and gaming. So
That's it.
random experiences. So the surprise of what I'm going to get by opening this chest or another one, it could be gambling or gaming, depending on the side.
It.
But taking the NFT part you mentioned, I want to ask Jimmy, how do you think NFTs are redefining the ownership in games, and how deep do you think is going to be the interoperability? I know there are some initiatives specifically on metaverse, like OMA 3 or some others. Do you really think that you can buy an NFT on Decentraland or any other game and then play with this specific character skin or in any game?
Okay, let's answer this by parts. The first part, like NFTs redefining like digital assets. I think that's happening. I remember when we start talking about NFTs, you know, if you go to the definition of what an NFT is, Decentraland is one of the use cases, like as an example. So, and I think we helped coin the concept NFT, and now I have some sort of regrets of naming something with a no at the start of the, because like defining things by the negative is can be whatever the other thing. So like non-fungible tokens was the idea to represent something that is unique. For Decentraland was like a piece of land, and giving the players or the community the power to actually be part of the world, create whatever the world is. It's about giving power or rights. And I think next to it is the economics it enables. It's like people can rent the land, build contracts on top of that. Other companies have built a business model on top of selling new content that you can deploy on your land that is totally outside of our control, and we actually love it and encourage that these economies can evolve, and it's a good example of interoperability, how a new business can spawn to fulfill a need in maybe your marketplace. So definitely it's a big part. For every different piece of the user-generated content that we have in Decentraland, we represent that as an NFT economy, and we internally in Decentraland is a continuous conversation on how we can enable new economies on like animations of the avatar, or like social interaction between two avatars, or having your pet, and I think it's a nice framework to continue extending your world and actually giving the opportunity for your players to participate and build and train and actually capture part of the value. Because if you compare with two Web2 gaming, for example, Roblox is taking more than 50% of all the revenues that are actually generated by the creators, the people who is engaged in the game, and they have this intrinsic motivation of being part of it. All the revenue they are generating is mostly going to the company and not to them. So I think NFTs came to change this narrative, this social contract between the creators in the world and the company that is building the place for them. And in terms of interoperability, I think that it's a big promise and big hopes around that. We also have saw the Ready Player One movie. Like you jump from one world to another, and it's like you see intellectual property from one company running next to another company. It's like a huge metaverse of all the ideas human beings already had all together. I'm not sure if we are going towards that direction, or I'm sure we are not there yet. There are some technical limitations. You cannot build one piece of content and it's immediately translated to any other platform. Like there are technical challenges there. What we are enabling at the moment is like if a community already built their intellectual piece, like for little money, they can extend it in more formats that can be included in your game. For example, if you are part of an NFT community of penguins, you can jump with your penguin avatar into Decentraland. And if the penguin community wants to also extend it into other metaverse projects, they can do it as well. And you as a user can hold your IP in many games. And I think it's a way for the communities to add more value to their users. Definitely it's on the side of the IP holders to take the lead and push their IP in more deeply. I think that already happens in the traditional space. You can see like brands pushing their toys into McDonald's, for example. I think it's something similar about in the gaming space.
Can I just add something real quick to that? Because I think interoperability is a really interesting one. Like in 2021, as you were saying, like the whole vision was, oh, you can take your sword and use it in your car racing game. And everyone was kind of a bit like, that just sounds dumb. Like, why would you do that? But there's a case for asset interoperability, but I also think now there's a lot of people and also guilds exploring identity interoperability. So, gamers will spend a hell of a lot of time within one particular type of genre or type of game. They might have leveled up, they've racked up all these achievements. But in traditional games, that means nothing if you want to jump over into a new game. And I think in Web3, that's one of the things where they're seeing if you can actually have player-owned identity, like self-sovereign identity, that could be a great use case for games because you can actually take what you've achieved, what you've earned, what you've shown that you can do in one game and demonstrate it in another. And that's like just a completely different way of thinking about interoperability that I think we're only just like scratching the surface on.
Yeah, that makes total sense because what can you do with an Axie on a shooter game?
Yeah,
so,
right?
like nothing. So the soulbound token and all kind of personal identities, there are some companies building that could be make more sense. So going to the investment part of all this ecosystem, which is at the backbone of everything because it's a very new industry and there is a lot of startups and of course one of the fueling powers are money. Leah, you have been investing in the space for a long time. You have invested in several companies. What do you think is the current landscape for investing in Web3 gaming?
Oh, it's bad. It's really tough out there. There's studios shutting down, games being abandoned before they'll ever launch. And that's a real shame because some great teams put a lot of hard work in over the past few years, weathered the bear market, and they're really getting to this stage where they might need to raise something like a strategic round or a bridge round or just maybe even a Series A to kind of get them through to the next stage. And the money has kind of dried up. And that's very frustrating, I think, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Last cycle, I think a shit ton of money flowed into this space and it was misallocated. You know, there was a time in, I think, early 2022 where you could just write Web3 on the back of a napkin and add gaming to it and raise $10 million.
Yeah.
I remember being at the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco a few years ago, and I thought I'd get punched in the face if I said NFT, because there were so many indie developers that had been pounding the pavement for years, trying to raise maybe $500,000 to build their dream project. And meanwhile, this crypto bro who has no experience in game design whatsoever just was able to, you know, grow money on trees. And I think that caused a lot of animosity toward the industry. It caused players and publishers to really hate Web3 games. And it also meant that a lot of this money that could have been put to good use went to projects that maybe didn't need it, or perhaps raised too much. So I think we're dealing with the hangover of that phase now, where, you know, a lot of investors got their fingers burnt, and they're not looking to jump into it again because they can't really explain the losses from last cycle. I was reading today, though, something really interesting, that maybe this cycle we might actually see some non-crypto native investment come into the space before crypto native investment for the first time ever, particularly in Web3 gaming, because the likes of, say, family offices have been watching the space for a while. They're still quite interested. They're not nursing the wounds of last cycle, and they're kind of interested to get in now. I've heard that from a lot of founders, actually, where they're sort of getting like cold DMs on LinkedIn where they're like, is this for real or is this a scam? And you do have to be careful of that. But a lot of it is actually legit interest. And I think that is a reflection of the fact that last cycle, some people went a little bit too hard on the narrative as opposed to looking at core fundamentals around team capabilities and market hype over real interest. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the change of narrative is hitting everyone. I am particularly fun of not speaking anymore about Web3 gaming or Web2 gaming. We need to talk about gaming because at the end, nobody cares what's the tech behind a game. Nobody asked, never in the past, did you build this with Unreal, with Solidity, or I don't care. It's just a fun game. I like to play it, and that's it. So as far as everyone is focusing on building a nice project that people want to play with, it will be fine. Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, I have something to add on top of what you're saying is, I think it's about the experience in building games, you know? Like, you have the traditional gaming industry that is huge, like entertainment is eating the world. And GDC is like the main important, I think, one of the biggest events in the industry. I was there last year, and I also tried to send.
And it was that impactful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I was trying to get a sense of what the industry was and how they feel about Web3. Totally get the vibe of the bear market and the backlash on like how these people are getting this money and building this kind of shitty games. Sorry for my language. It's like, and also the design of the incentives. Like if you are a game developer or game designer, you're really about the game mechanics and balancing the game and actually make it interesting and fun to play because that's the intrinsic motivation. And when a crypto project came, they say like, okay, you are going to farm tokens and the motivation is just the money. People jump into the space as like, how can I make money here? So as a game designer, I think that's
Yeah, because
they
the
really
space
hate.
the space was full of degens using gaming as an excuse to launch a token and raise money, and that's it. They were not game developers.
Totally, but last year I saw that trend changing. I saw like a huge stand from Avalanche that they were showcasing like a AAA class game that has some blockchain somewhere, but people were having fun, and it could be an esport pretty easily. We saw other stands building mobile games that are actually fun, I have talked with some gaming studios that were recently acquired by another like Web3 investment firm, and they were actually acquiring games developers to actually build fun games. So I think that there is a need of migrating talent from the already existing industry into this Web3 philosophical kind of tech background. Looking forward to see what happens in the next year.
Okay, and we are now sitting in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. MERGE is an event born in Spain, in Europe. All of us have some roots with South America. You are native, you live here. Leah has invested and had some research in South America. You had your legal firm with main office in Spain, but also in Colombia. Why do you think Latin America plays such an important role in this industry?
Well, I can start.
Okay.
I think that this is a combination on demography, technology. I mean, it's the perfect pack that combines perfectly with the philosophy of decentralization here. It's a huge market. There are some regions with banking difficulties which motivate people to play to earn, or just they rely on Web3 because it's easier for them to make payments and whatever. I mean, this is the perfect combination for the space to focus on Latin America. On the other side, I think that we need to work a lot with education. I mean, not from regulation, just as in Europe, that we know that we are so regulated that maybe we are too tight. Here we have the opportunity to build something well created. We have the example of Europe. We know what we need to do, what we don't need to do, and it's the opportunity to have the perfect balance and the opportunity to let people, the users, the players, to know exactly what they're doing. I mean, if we don't educate from the bottom, then we will have problems with scams and whatever. So I mean that we need to focus on this and on the regulatory clarity, but from a moderate perspective, and just to find this balance, we need to find, and that I don't think we exactly have in Europe. So we can learn.
Okay, Leah.
Yep, so as I said earlier, I'm Australian, but I live in the Philippines, and I've been studying Web3 gaming communities since August 2020. Been in crypto since 2016 though, and prior to figuring out about Web3 gaming, I was very focused on crypto remittances and how it could make it easier for people to transfer money to and from home. So people who had to go overseas to earn money and send money home to their families, how could we make it faster and cheaper to send money home? When I discovered Web3 gaming, I realized we've been working on the wrong problem. Web3 for me opened up an opportunity for people to not have to leave their home, but to be able to access global opportunities to earn good money and get good jobs and build their education, improve their skills without ever having to leave home. So when I started studying this in the Philippines, we started to see this Philippine effect, where like everything that happened in the Philippines, which is commonly called like the epicenter of Web3 gaming adoption, within 3 to 6 months, you'd see it being picked up in other places around the world. And I immediately saw this happening in LATAM. And that was no surprise because of the Spanish influence for both countries, well, obviously for all of them. But we've been coming here, my team and I, since 2021 to study the adoption here in Argentina, as well as Mexico and Venezuela. And for us, we really felt that we were going to see a lot of the same effects that we witnessed in the Philippines, which is people who deserve opportunity, who are looking for opportunity, but for whatever reason they have been excluded. And that might be because they don't have the money to be able to leave their hometown. They don't have a chance to be able to go to the best school. They weren't born into a good family or something like that. Web3 changes that in being able to allow people to access a global, decentralized digital economy and find earning opportunities within that without having to leave home. The way that we onboard people to that economy, I firmly believe, is through games. When I discovered Web3 gaming, before that, I'd spent years trying to shove Web3 education down people's throats. They did not care. When you tell people you've got to go through 22 steps to set up a wallet and buy Bitcoin and learn sexes and dexes and blah, blah, they'll go, oh, that's great, but they don't do it. Suddenly it's hey, here's this cool, fun game. If you just play it, then you have some tokens in your wallet. Oh, and by the way, they're worth something. I mean, I could show you how to cash them out if you want, but it's up to you. And they're please show me. And we saw these community building efforts where people were hand-holding each other to get access to these opportunities. And suddenly you have some of the most sophisticated Web3 users in the world, in the provinces, around emerging economies across the world. So for me, I think that Philippine effect I saw happening in LATAM, and I think it's only going to catch on like wildfire.
Great.
Just a few comments. So I believe Argentina in particular has amazing talent. Most of, I think, Latin American people working in tech are also looking for working in a remote company and tapping a global market. So I think we have seen many Argentinians and people in the local region trying to get a position in some crypto, being part of a movement that is global and being able to collaborate with talented people across the world. I think Argentinians in particular, because of the education and a healthy level of disrespect for authority or maybe disbelief in organization and institutions, they feel attracted to the crypto space, and I think that's really interesting. And you may see Argentinians all around the space. And also there is also a decent amount of the old wave of entrepreneurs. We have seen many unicorns in Argentina being funded, a big network of entrepreneurs like Endeavor, and these old waves of entrepreneurs are still around and they want the best for the new generation. So I think maybe that happened in private, but it's pretty a solid network for anyone starting a project in the space.
Great. The screen says we have no more time, but I still have one more question, and I don't want to miss it. So I would like to know what's your take on meme coins and meme coins related to gaming, and specifically if you have some thought about Libra and the whole thing.
I'll go last.
I can start.
Okay, lawyers first.
I will be very polite and very from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
So
No politics, just legal.
just legal, yeah. I mean, I'm totally pro meme coins because it's a way of having fun, and there's nothing intrinsically bad on them. You can use it within the gaming space, and it's part of the game, and it's good. They are volatile, but you need to know, again, if we have education and we know what we're doing and what type of product we have in front, then it's okay. I know very interesting projects regarding meme coins that are well prepared and studied and made up from people who really know what they are doing. So we don't need to say that meme coins are devil. I don't think so. The thing is that we have to be careful. People have to know what they're doing. And of course, there are some market abuse regulations that they still need to be fulfilled, and that the matter is be careful, because if we are not careful, then regulation will come, and that's the thing. So I promise to be very plain.
So second, meme coins are narratives, and narratives can move markets. Personally, it feels like a casino. I don't like to participate in meme coins at all. But I think at the core is like if you are building a community-driven project, like there is a way to do it that is under some regulation under the law and actually can empower a community. Regarding Libra, I think it's a very particular case that doesn't represent the whole industry of the meme coins. Us, like living here in Argentina, I feel super bad for the case. And yeah, I so sad.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make it really quick. Degen's going to degen. I think there's nothing wrong with meme coins. It's community and culture on chain, and I think it's an amazing way to learn about markets and finance as long as people don't invest more than they can afford to lose. And I think that's the biggest problem. A lot of people FOMO into it without bothering to educate themselves and using it as a learning opportunity. That's the problem. If they're actually burning their fingers and learning something from it, I think that's a wonderful way for people to get involved. And if regulation picks up and tries to tackle this space, then that will be a bad thing because it's putting up barriers for people to participate. Libra, I'm a foreigner, so I'm really scared about having any opinions on this, but I guess from an outside perspective, it seems like Milei was doing a really good job for Argentina, and if this silly meme coin, impacts the trajectory that he was on for the future of this country, I think that would be a really bad thing, and it makes me embarrassed to be part of crypto.
Okay, well, they are cutting us. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. It was very interesting. I hope you all enjoyed, and hope to see you again.
Thank you.
You're such a badass going overtime.